Talk, I have a very, very special guest with me this week. We would like to welcome Rooftop Pastor Corey B. Brooks to the show. Pastor Brooks is more than a pastor. He's a businessman, a philanthropist, a mentor, and a visionary. Pastor B. Brooks Sr. founded New Beginnings Church of Chicago and is the CEO of Project Hood, which is an organization he started in 2012 with the vision of ending the violence and building communities one neighborhood at a time. Recognized for his achievements, Pastor Brooks has been honored with prestigious Best Community Leader of the Year by Steve Harvey Ford Hoodie Awards, Chicago Defenders News Maker of the Year, and Chicago's Urban League's Top Innovator. Welcome, Pastor Corey Brooks. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good, brother. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Man, no problem at all. I'm definitely glad to have you. This is a special episode. We met at the NARMI conference where you gave an amazing presentation. You knocked the socks off every Live the Life office and staff member that attended, for sure. For sure. So we're going to go ahead and get right into it. Just tell us a little bit how you became known as the Rooftop Pastor.
Yeah, so in 2011, there was a young man who was shot and killed in our neighborhood, part of our church, and we were having his funeral. And after the funeral, I looked across the street, and there was this old hotel, sex trafficking, drugs, a lot of different things going on, illegal activities that was just bad for our community. And I felt led of God to go on top of the roof of that motel and to raise enough money to purchase it and tear it down. So I ended up staying on top of the roof in a tent from November the 20th of 2011 to February 24th of 2012, 94 days, bringing attention and awareness to the violence, raising the money. And that's from there on, they start calling me Rooftop Pastor.
Man, what even, and I know you gave the reason, but tell me a little bit about your headspace. What made you say, okay, you know what? Yeah, I got to do this.
Well, at that time, we had done 20 funerals of young Black men ages 15 to 25 who had been shot and killed in the city of Chicago. And we had funerals here at our church. And a lot of them wasn't reported in the news. People, they weren't being talked about. And there was a lot of violence going on in our community, so much so that in 2014, the Chicago Sun-Times called the neighborhood right where we are, O-Block, which is named after a young man named O.D. Perry who was shot and killed. The gangs picked up the O in his name and started calling it O-Block. They said we were the most dangerous block in all of Chicago. Wow. So I was thinking, we have to do more as a church to transform our community, to bring about competent, transformational opportunities for people. And that's what we decided to do. We decided to take it on and not shy away from it, not wait on government to come in and do something about it, but to go ahead and fight it ourselves. And so that's kind of where our whole concept of our outreach and our ministry and our non-for-profit is focused.
That's amazing. That's good that, well, the circumstance not good, but the fact that you were able to intervene and start making a change. And then right after the 94 days on the rooftop, you decided to take a walk across America, which I didn't even know. That was something just, doing my Googles, making sure I'm prepared. I'm like, what? I must have. How did he not mention this at NARMI?
I was so focused on trying to raise the money to get the center built that I said, what else can we do? What else can I try to do to raise money? When you're in the hood, like we are, right in the middle of a lot of poverty, a lot of distress, you have to be creative and you got to figure out ways to do the vision and the mission that God has called you to do. There are people who say, and I do believe that if God gives you vision, he'll give you provision. I believe that, but that does not mean you're not going to have to work for the provision. And so I just try to figure out ways to work for the provision, to provide for the vision that God has given us. And so the Walk Across America was part of trying to just be creative and get those funds to start building this community center.
So so with that, I'm interested to see what similarities and differences did you see between the different communities walking through, even compared to Chicago?
Well, one thing I noticed in the urban areas like Philly, parts of Brooklyn, St. Louis, Dallas, all of these places where you have lots of Black people who are impoverished, all of those areas have high rates of crime, high rates of violence.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what you see all across. Not only that, you also see, since we're talking about relationships, a very high rate of single parent households where
Mm.
you have the mothers or the grandmothers who are working extremely hard to try to take care of these children and these young boys, and you have a lot of absent fathers. So that's one of the things that I noticed walking all across America. And I also noticed just the difference in the communities. You know, the schools are sometimes different. The way people went about their everyday life was different.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able to it was really beneficial and educational.
That's good. Now tell me about the physical side. I know that was that had to be
Yeah,
a
so
lot on you.
that was the hardest part. We had a group of people. We had about, I think, 15 people who started out with us,
Mm-hmm.
and then 5 of those went ahead of us to LA to try to prepare for the end walk. But it was real intense as far as, because you got to keep everybody on the same page. You got to actually walk. You got to make sure everybody has enough water, enough food, enough. So the logistics were more difficult than the walk itself. The walk was kind of like, okay, let's just walk. You get those miles in every day. But it was the logistics that were really hard, making sure everybody had clean clothes, making sure that
uh,
we had a place to sleep, making sure, that was the more stressful part. And then on top of that, trying to make sure that you raise money. That was the ultimate goal. So it was difficult. The walk across America was really, really difficult.
that's crazy. What's something personally that you learned taking that walk? Like what did God show you during this process?
Yeah. So I've learned this about myself from the roof and the walk, and that is that I'm a lot more resilient than I had given myself credit for.
Mm.
Meaning that I can take a lot more than sometimes than I probably thought I could. Um, and I also learned that I actually do have a gift of faith. It's hard for some people to believe, even I have times when it's difficult for me to believe sometimes. But I think God has gifted me with an unusual amount of faith to just believe God is going to come through and believe God is going to work it out. And but if I do my part and put the time in, the prayer in, the work in, I believe God is going to bless it. And so I learned that about myself, my resilience and just being faithful.
Facts, because even I'm reading and I'm like, man, he's constantly putting himself in uncomfortable situations to progress forward, and that's something my dad personally always told me. God is always gonna put you in an uncomfortable position before He gifts you with what you need, because you're gonna have to learn something.
I
But
believe that.
He gifts you.
Yeah. I believe that. I think a lot of times being in uncomfortable situations, that's the breeding ground for miracles. That's the breeding ground for God to bless you. So whenever I start getting like uncomfortable and just seem like it's a little tough, I know I'm getting closer to where God would have for me to be. So yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I definitely feel I felt that way, definitely personally. So even so, with the first rooftop stay to the walk across America to the newest rooftop situation, to building the community center, tell me, how do you make time for you? Where does the downtime, the even the time to recharge? Because we can pour, but when do you have that time to fuel yourself?
Yeah, I don't, to be honest, I don't take enough time for myself because
Mm,
over the years I've been so busy, so focused on trying to accomplish things. But here in my latter years, I am trying to make sure that I take some headspace time to get myself together, to get my mind together, and not feel guilty for that. I can remember when I would try to take a break and I would actually feel guilty that I'm taking a break. Well, I've gotten past that, thankfully. So I realize you have to take breaks. You have to come apart unless you fall apart.
mm.
And so I try to make sure that I plan some time for me and my family and my mindset. And I don't do it enough, but I'm definitely working toward that. I got that philosophy: work hard, play later.
And I appreciate the honesty. Most people, when you ask them that, they try to, flip it and give you the, oh yeah, you definitely got to make time. I make the time. But truth be told, a lot of people are busy, and it is a struggle to actually make that time for yourself.
Absolutely. If there's one area of that I know that I need to work on that is not pleasing to God, that would be the area. Um, you know, He ordered the universe, He ordered the world, He created, and even God's creation on the seventh day, said, "This is, chill out, rest." Um, I know I need to do that, and I don't do it enough.
That's honest. That's real. So with Project Hood, I read that you're definitely big on mentoring, and even that whole organization as a whole, definitely making sure that you're in the city mentoring the youth. So where did that where did that drive to mentor come from? Because that people try to mentor, but it takes a lot for sure.
Yeah, I grew up in a home where my mom had gotten married to my stepdad, and my stepdad ended up getting strung out on drugs. My whole teenage formative years, he was just out, just crazy, and never we never really connected. And I spent a lot of times at a community center called the Multipurpose Center in
Hmm.
the little town that I was in called Muncie, Indiana. And it was there at that center that some young brothers, some young men loved me, spent time with me, helped me, and I believe that was, and I'm still close to them today. I check on them like fathers, like big brothers. Um, if they need anything, I'm right there for them because they poured so, man. And when I tell you, they poured so much into me, making
Mm.
sure I had some shoes for basketball, making sure I went to school, and if I was messing up at school, they would hear about it and check me.
Oh, yeah.
If they
Talk
heard
about
something in the streets, where I was acting up in the streets, they come scoop me up. Hey, what's the problem? So I always had some really strong mentors and guys who loved me just man, just because. And I think that's important to especially young boys in our neighborhoods who are growing up without fathers is so important. Like for instance, I have a couple of young men that I have taken a personal liking to,
it.
and they just graduated from high school. I've been in their life since they were young boys, 12, 11, and they just graduated from high school. They straight from an area that's hardcore, and I've been trying to convince them that they can go to college. So I'm taking them on a college tour. Right now, they work for me, and I was so excited that this morning that they were on time for work because I drill being on time, and you know, so to so to see them and then to tell, and then this is what got me to see them and tell them, man, I'm so proud of y'all. Y'all doing a good job, and to see them light up,
Mm-hmm.
priceless. But I know neither one of them have a father in their life. The guys on the block, and you really trying to pour in positive into them.
Mm-hmm.
And so mentoring for me is a really big thing because I think that's the thing that sometimes saves us from going in the wrong direction. If those guys hadn't been in my life early on, man, I know I would have ended up in some major trouble because I was just that type of kid.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. I know it's funny, I feel like black men specifically when it comes to mentorship, especially to the younger crowd. It's almost like for me, well, my experience, I'm a part of a mentoring organization who I was in college called Big Brother Little Brother Mentoring Program. So we would pair upperclassmen with lowerclassmen, to help them with their transition and stuff like that. And it's like when you pair them, some dudes had to like, man, I ain't trying to, I don't even know you. Like, give you the cold shoulder at first, like not trying to embrace the actual love that we should be giving each other. Because truth be told, that's how men become stronger, holding each other accountable, actually letting everybody come in.
That's how
So
you turn boys into men. Yeah, you turn boys into men that way by mentoring them and bringing them along. And like you said, sometimes in that mentoring process, it takes a little time to because they so used to people walking out their life. They so used to people not being committed. They so used to being there one moment, not there the next moment. So you got to really be consistent and compassionate and love unconditionally when you're
that's
dealing with a lot of these young brothers.
that's the word, unconditionally, for sure, and have the ability to give that because it checks yourself too. As somebody trying to mentor, it puts the flashlight on you. Okay, you said you want to. All right, we gonna see. So that's good. So tell me a little bit more that Project Hood has done. Success stories, what you've been involved in. Just share some light.
So there's three things that I love that we're doing right. We do a lot of stuff, but there's three things that really stand out that I can really appreciate that we do. One is our construction trade class,
Mm.
where we get brothers and sisters off the street and we get them into construction, teaching them a trade, and then make sure that they get a nice paying job. I love the fact that we're getting people that um, have been thrown away, cast aside, and forgotten about, and getting them involved to the point of learning something that could change their life. So the construction and trades is really important. Another important program that we have is our violence prevention team that goes out into the neighborhood, works with all the different gangs to try to mediate conflict and to try to make sure that we stop violence. Coming up here soon, we're going to be in 6 different. Our neighborhood is made up of 6 different cliques or gangs. We're going to be in each one of those territories at the same time, simultaneously calling it a 24-hour of peace, where there's no shooting, no arguments, no madness, no chaos, and just really working hard to make things like that happen. You can't do that without that violence prevention team. And then the third thing that I'm really excited about is the fact that we're building this community center. It's not just a community center, but it's a place that's going to teach people a lot about trades, transformation, life, totally focused on family. And it's 89,000 square feet, $35 million. Our goal is to pay cash. We're now at 18.5 million that we raised. So, I'm really excited about those things that Project Hood is doing. I appreciate it.
For sure, for sure. That's good. So question with the construction, the building of the community center, and what you guys do. Tell me, how do you think that's gonna how that's gonna affect the city? So getting into, because I read a little bit of the plans and everything that you had involved inside the community center. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so it's going to impact the city from the standpoint of, as I said before earlier, this is one of Chicago's toughest areas. And if we can bring transformation to this community, then we're able to create a model to show not just Chicago, but other cities what can take place when people put their energy and effort to something that can be impactful and transformational. The center is going to have so many different components that it would help with that, from its trades, from arts to sports to entrepreneurship to counseling. We even have a urgent care facility. You know,
Wow.
we have a bank that's going to be there. You know, because there's not a lot of banks in our neighborhood, so we're bringing things to the neighborhood that'll be really impactful. Hopefully, people can go to the bank and get homes or mortgages, and people who have urgent care situations can get urgent care. So it's a lot of stuff that's happening that's going to be a blessing.
That's good. When when it comes to the relationship between or amongst the youth in the city, where do you think what do you think they could work on the most? So if you were talking to a group of young adults right now, what's one thing you would tell them that they need to work on? So the being that older, mature, outside looking in to the situation, what would you tell them?
I think one of the most difficult things for them to do and to learn to do is forgiveness. I
Mm,
think a lot of pain, a lot of trauma, a lot of heartache is being carried by a lot of young people because things have happened to them or around them or to family and friends that they may know. And they do not know how to get past that. And a lot of anger bulls out of it, a lot of hostility is born out of it. And I think if we could teach them somehow forgiveness and they actually embrace it, it would definitely make life a lot easier for a lot of them.
I agree. So what's your take on the steps of forgiveness? So we know that forgiveness is a key factor. What are some important components that could lead you to forgiveness, do you think?
I tell people that forgiveness is like, you got to learn to do it because unforgiveness is like poison. You dislike or angry at the other person, but really it's doing more detriment and more harm to you. It's almost like me drinking poison, waiting on you to die. It doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. The anger, the pride, and the frustration causes me more issues. So I got to learn how to forgive. So how do I learn how to do that? Number one, I have to learn how to turn it over to God because when you turn it over to God, a lot of people don't want to forgive because they feel like they're taking people off the hook. But
Yeah.
when you turn people over to God, you're not taking them off the hook. You're putting them on the hook and you letting God deal with it. And it's best that God deal with it because sometimes people deserve uh, certain things, and in my own humanness, I won't give them what they really deserve. But if I give it to God, He'll give them exactly. He knows exactly what they need, what they don't need, and how to handle it. So, but getting people to understand just that principle, the first principle, is very difficult, and I think that's where we have to get to.
I agree. I think forgiveness is definitely high up there for sure with one things that people don't do or even have a lot of nowadays. I definitely think communication, even communicating those feelings, I think
Sure.
that's another one because now I feel like because of social media and it's more of a selfish mindset to
Yeah.
where almost they call it like main character syndrome almost. So you have these feelings and you think people are doing all this stuff to you and you're bottling it in and you're not telling these people, communicating, hey, you did this, in order for them to make an adjustment. I tell people all the time, you can't be mad at somebody, not say why you're mad, and then expect them to just change. It's how are they going to know to
Right.
change? It doesn't work like that at all. And then also giving that grace after. So I forgiveness, communication, forgiveness, and grace. Because after you forgive and after y'all both come to an understanding, okay, this hurt you. Okay, the first time they may slip up. But as long as they're recognizing and taking accountability and trying to, take those steps forward, I think that's a big thing. So definitely those three things or
Yeah,
something for sure.
without a doubt.
So with mentoring, what would you tell somebody who's trying to mentor? What advice would you give them?
That's trying to be a mentor.
Hmm. That's trying to get into the city, trying to have somebody.
First thing is, yeah, the first I would say just get started. You know, I think there's no like 100% way to do mentoring. There's a lot of different ways to do mentoring, but I think the first step is just jumping in and trying to build relationships with individuals that need to be mentored, that individuals who you look and you see, okay, this young man needs something, or this young woman needs someone in their life to help them get on track, to help them stay accountable. Someone, every individual needs affirmation, attention, and affection.
Mm,
And I would tell a mentor, look, find someone that you can give them that the attention they need, the affirmation that they need, and the affection that they need, and get started.
that's good. Just go ahead and jump in there and do it.
Jump in. Yeah.
I like it. I like it. With also again just doing my Googles and seeing everything about you. I wondered with all the media coverage, the news outlets, things of that nature that you've been accustomed to at this point, do you think that has affected your leadership in a negative or positive way, pros and cons, just being in the limelight?
Uh, it's funny you say that. I was just talking to someone this morning, and we were talking about popularity and being in being in the media's focus. And
Hmm.
one of the things that I have learned is that they can be for you today and be against you tomorrow.
Just like
So don't get so caught up in in what they say. I used to play high school basketball, and I was pretty good, and I can remember our head coach Bill Hero telling me, "Don't get caught up in the headlines. Don't believe the clippings. Just because they say you had a great game and you did all of this, don't believe it." And so, you have to be careful and stay balanced and don't get caught up in your pride, because we have a tendency, especially if you come from a place like I did, where you feel like there was some rejection and things like that, then you look for outside things to affirm you. But I'm just thankful that I learned a long time ago that it's only God who can really give me the affirmation that I need, the attention and affection that I need ultimately, and that I don't need all the media stuff. So I think in one way it has helped me become a better leader, to understand that um you just have to be careful, and you have to know that there are some people out there who mean you well, but there are some people out there who, man, they want to destroy you and take you down, and for no reason. So it's a balance.
definitely finding that balance. I'm sure that was a difficult process for sure. So, how with Chicago, of course, you mentioned it earlier. Infamous O Block. If anybody that is listening to hip hop, rap music, especially on the radio, I'm pretty sure they know about the block name. So, how when it comes to you mentoring, actually trying to get involved into the city, how do you think music plays a part in allowing people to be mentored? Because my dad used to tell me all the time, you got to watch what you put in your ears. It's always good to you know frolic in what people got going on, but you got these things on your ears majority of the day. So how do you think music is affecting mentors or the act of mentorship?
Yeah, I see it every single day.
Mm.
The influence of music on the culture, and the influence of fast cars, fast women, fast cash have on the impact on these young brothers. And they see a little dirt or a Chief Keef, and they want that lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes very difficult as a mentor to help them work through that process, because a lot of times in our situations, we mentoring young guys who have nothing. Their family background is jacked up. Sometimes they going from house to house to house, and then they looking at their phone and they see Keith or Dirk or Shoebox or Vaughn, people that they've grown up with that they know
Mm-hmm.
living lavishly, and they want that. And I understand it, but to mentor them out of that and helping them to understand that you can get it to the right, a different way, um, is really, it's hard. It's trying, but you just got to keep on pouring into them. As we're talking about this, I'm thinking about the guys that we have working for us. And, they all come from the neighborhood. They all know those guys I just named, but yet they're over in the building, demoing the building. And it's hard for them, because they got to humble. You got to teach them about humility. You got to teach them about an honest wage. You got to teach them about being on time.
Mm-hmm.
But they keep seeing those images and hearing that music, and those images and that music impacts them in a negative way. And so you gotta really fight hard to combat those negative images that are being portrayed in the music industry and on media, to make our kids think that they can have those type of things without putting in the work, without getting an education, without getting a trade, that they can have that. And it's really difficult.
So, especially being in Chicago, because I mean, for me, even when I became aware of the situations that's going on in Chicago, I'm in high school, ninth grade on YouTube, War on Chirac, and listening to all these things and following these rappers and stuff like that. But there's a whole nother side to the city when it comes to music. That's Chicago is very, very rich in culture and especially in music. So are how do they see the other side? The kids that are engulfed in listening to the drill music. Do they try to go to the other side, embrace it, see it, or are they just stuck on that?
They're stuck. And the reason why they're stuck, though, I believe, is because they haven't been introduced to anything else. If all you're hearing 24/7 is drill music, that's all you know. And it's not until you get introduced to something else that you become familiar with it and maybe decide, hey, I like jazz, or I like blues, or I like a different type of R&B, or a different type, or gospel. Those different genres.
Mhm.
Um, so they have to be introduced to those, and I don't think there's enough of an introduction. That's one of the reasons why in the center we have our music and art studio, and part of our music and art studio is going to be no drill music, but you can do music, and we want them to do music. We want them to learn the arts, but we want to expose them to a whole different lifestyle. And I think that's real important. But yeah, it's no doubt about it that a lot of young people who are involved in the music scene or love music in Chicago are tapped into drill music.
And then, random side note, you think Chicago is going to crack down on drill music as a whole, like New York City has been trying to do?
Um, I think they may try, and here's why. Um, Politicians always look to try to blame someone else for their failures. And so instead of accepting the responsibility as leaders of our city to fix the problems, it's a lot easier to blame some rapper who come out of an impoverished environment for the destruction and the decay that's going on. And it's a lot easier to blame them instead of saying who created this destruction, who created this decay, who created these neighborhoods. So yeah, I believe that ultimately they may try to go after some of these rappers and the music, but I think that's unfair. Although I don't like the drill music, I don't think people ought to be paid to talk about killing other people. We're the only race of people where they're talking about killing and shooting and get paid lots of money for it. But at the same time, I don't think we should blame them for the violence that we see in Chicago. Do they play a part of it? Absolutely, but not the biggest part.
For sure, for sure. Now, all right, you're here now. You're at where you're at. If you could look back, let's say 20 years ago, talking to yourself, what advice are you giving yourself? What ways are you giving your younger self?
I would say 20 years ago,
Mhm.
well, I was gonna say if you go back even further to teenage years,
Okay.
I would
That.
I probably tell myself if you just work a little harder, you can make the NBA.
just a little bit.
Just a little harder, you can match up against Jordan and Kobe.
There you go
Yeah,
there.
I would say if I could give myself advice, looking back, um, I know exactly what I would say. Get a strong, get a strong, loyal team around you. A
Mm,
lot of times,
talk about it.
a lot of times, yeah, a lot of times I believe when I know God has given me big vision. I've had big vision for a long time. I always wanted to do something that was bigger than me,
Hmm.
for God's glory, stuff that only God would get the credit for. That people would look at me and say, "I know he didn't do that. God had to do it." I think for people who have big vision, they have to learn to get a big team, a great team, and a loyal team around them, and humble themselves and know that they can't carry the vision by themselves. It's impossible. You got to get a competent, capable team to help you do it. And you are the sum total of the people that you are around. I believe that. So if you want to be strong, you got to get some strong people around you. And that's the advice that I would give myself 20 years ago. Just if I could have started a lot earlier with creating a strong, reliable team, man, no telling where we would be right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that one. The having you can't do it all yourself, and I'm somebody who is definitely is learning that lesson in the process of learning that lesson. Because outside of
Find some people who, yeah, find some people who love you
Mhm.
just because they love you, who want to see your vision come to pass without wanting anything out of it. They just want to see it come to pass, and who are gifted and capable and competent, and man, go after it.
That's gonna take you a long way for sure.
Yeah,
And then the weight's gonna be lifted. You're not trust me, you preaching right now. For sure. So what
absolutely.
so we're you in the process of building the community center. So tell me what's next if you've thought that far. What's after?
Yeah, I have thought about what's next. I try to not share too much of it because people, you know, they try to destroy it before you even get it off the ground, and also sometimes people, when you're sharing it, people are looking at their own lives for what they have not accomplished, and they hear you saying certain things, and they're thinking, well, you haven't even finished the community center yet. Now here you trying to jump to this, but it's not that. It's just that I'm so future thinking and so big vision minded. That's I couldn't stop it if I wanted to. But two things that I can tell you that we're going to do. One is we're going to create a school for young Black boys between the ages of kindergarten and eighth grade.
Mm,
And the qualifications are you must come from a single parent household, and you must live below the poverty line. And we're going to have a school that's totally focused on turning boys to men and
awesome.
helping them to be successful. And so I'm really excited about that. That's one of the things we're going to do. And then the second thing we're going to do is that we're going to buy about 50 to 100 acres of land somewhere in the country. um, develop it so we can have a part of it where people who are trying to get off drugs, who are strung out to addictions, we can take them away for long periods of time, detox them physically, mentally, and get them spiritually on track. But also a place, that same community, be a place where we can take young boys or young girls and help them to get their lives back on track too, especially those who had a lot of trauma, helping them to work through a trauma, like a trauma camp, a trauma counseling center. I think those are the two biggest things that I have on my mind right now. And then the third is just helping other cities create these centers, these same type of Project Hood centers.
That's awesome. And then who knows? Definitely live the life. Our True North program. We go in, teach healthy relationship skills. Maybe we can find a way in there somehow. We try to get in where we fit in. I know right now in Florida we have a grant where we go into to like the, what do you call them? It just slipped my mind. Like correctional facilities and things of that nature, going in and there we go, that's the word I was looking for, and going in and teaching these skills, and they're loving it so far. So hopefully we can reach out somehow.
Yeah, we have to collaborate. Teamwork makes a dream work.
Yes, sir. I love it. And then we talked about it before you got on, but definitely shout out the gala and talk about how people can even can donate, because we're going to send this around Florida like we usually do, but we're going to push heavy in Chicago since you're on it. So tell people how they can get involved.
So our gala is coming up September the 29th. And it's on a Friday, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be a great event. They can go to our website, projecthood.org, and they can find out about how they can participate. And we would love for people to come and hang out with us and have a great time. So yeah, that Project Hood, that's HOOD.org, projecthood.org, and they can find out all of our information.
Get it down, get it down. Now, how do you want to end it? What's one thing you want to stamp off of? Tell the people to just clear the air, set something straight. What do you want to get off your chest?
You know what? All I can say is, man, help us out. We really need the help. We're trying to do something transformational. We're trying to bring about life change in the individuals' lives. We're trying to turn people around, trying to help them families to break generational curses, but we need a lot of people to help us to do that. And so anything that people could help us with, we would greatly appreciate it. You can donate, give us your time, treasure, and talent, and we would greatly appreciate it. It is much needed.
And there you have it. I would like to thank you for joining us this episode. Man, you definitely. I love when we have people come on and they're what's the word I'm looking for? They're move makers. They shake the room. They when they put their hand into something, it mixes up. I forgot who said it. I think we were at the NARMI conference and somebody made the metaphor of, I think it was one of the breakout sessions. So I don't know if you've seen it, but he would say, we want to be a coffee bean. We get into you men want to be coffee beans. You drop the coffee bean in the water, everything changes around the coffee and it becomes something else. So I like it, and I definitely appreciate you. And that is all we have for this week. If you want to hear more from Pastor Brooks, you can join him in Live the Life South Florida November 3rd at the Galleria in Fort Lauderdale, Florida for the Rooftop Revelations Dinner. Come hear the Rooftop Pastor Corey Brooks share his position on family brokenness. All proceeds benefits the students and the families and allows our office in South Florida to expand their reach. For more information, you can contact Kelly at livethelife.org. Remember, we are now offering free classes in Florida through our Healthy Marriage Initiative grant. If you are interested, check out livethelife.org/aim. If you are military and you are interested in learning more about this program, you can reach out to us by emailing ashley@livethelife.org. Thanks for listening, everyone. I hope you feel educated, encouraged, and empowered to thrive in whatever relationship you're in.